Okay, I'd like to call the February 6, 2018 Public Works Public Utilities Committee meeting to order. I'm going to take the roll. Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Browning?
Here.
Mr. Hellinger?
Here.
Okay, item number 2, we're going to move on to election of chair and vice chair. Do we have a motion for chair?
I make a motion, Mr. Jones as our chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other motions? All right, we'll close that motion and I will take the roll. Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Do we have a motion for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Browning for vice chair.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right, we'll close the nominations and I will take the roll. Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Browning?
Yes.
And Chairman Jones?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes and I will now pass the meeting on to our chairman, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the nomination. Okay, so item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the motion summary for the meeting dated April 4th. As recorded and transcribed. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. We got Mr. Hellinger, Mr. Browning, first and second. Clerk, read the roll, please.
Mr. Hellinger?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Browning?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 4 is we set aside a portion of every meeting for public comment for something that's not on the agenda. If there's anybody in the hallway or tied in any place from the public who wants to comment, speak now. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, update of snow and ice activities.
That'd be me, Mr. Chair. In your packet is most of the exhibits. I'm going to put them up here anyways, just for.
So the packet information is now up there.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have 3 sheets in your packet that look like this, and I'm not going to go in all the detail. Really, what I wanted to just present was the first sheet really shows that we track every storm, all the hours, all the material, all the brine, all the salt we put down per truck, what time that went down, so we can check out our efficiencies, how much salt per mile we're putting down, how much total salt we used, how much brine we're putting down per mile. It's all part of the efficiencies now of how snow and ice is managed by using agricultural additives, brine, combination of salt. We no longer use grits because of the environmental issues with those. So on these, on the bottom lines, the very bottom one tells me how much, and on your sheet you can see, these ones might be slightly different in your packet. I made these a little bit bigger, but it tells me how much salt I used during that total event and what my totals are for the year. So after every single event, like tomorrow morning, or probably more like Thursday morning, we're done with this upcoming snow event, I'll know all my new totals, what our efficiencies are. And that's really how we track what we brought to Public Works in the past couple of years, to be able to really track how new equipment works, how personnel training is working, so we can make sure we're doing the job efficiently, how fast we're able to plow snow, how many miles per hour we're able to get through. Generally around 15 to 20 miles per hour is our typical plowing speed in subdivisions. So it lets us give a whole lot of statistics so we know where we are. The next one really is just my report by event, and it tells me the top yellow line, that's the most current, I just added that today, tells me that I've purchased 4,064 tons of salt this year, and I have 2,008 tons left. That doesn't include what we used last night, 100 tons, or what we'll use tonight. So we will, on a small event, we could use 100 to 150 tons of salt. If we have to salt more than once, we could be over 200 tons of salt on an event. We just purchased 1,000 more tons of salt to replenish our supply, and that shows up from Henderson Trucking, that line, 998 tons. And it's very possible we could use all that salt up by the end of next week. One of the worst things we can get in the wintertime, you can see at 17 events, most of them have been an inch of snow or 2 inches of snow. It just eats up our salt supply. And that's mostly just taking care of our priority 1 and priority 2 streets. We haven't put a lot of salt in the neighborhood so far. We've been really relying on those temperatures coming back up. Even like this weekend, they'll come back up to 36, 39 degrees, 40 degrees, and we'll get that free melting out of it. But if our refuse trucks have issues, we have to get out in front of the refuse trucks and salt out ahead of them, because they do not operate so well on the snow. So the third chart really just shows statistics all the way back from 2002. The top one just shows how much salt we use per year, and you can see the graph's fairly straight. It's creeping up slowly, but we're trying to manage, control. What's interesting is becoming more efficient. You can see on average, we're using about the same amount of salt we used to use, even though we have much more road to take care of. That's because we're using it much more efficiently. The second chart shows our salt expense per ton, and you can see that is creeping up. It's continued to creep up, and we had 2 years ago, that was right after the big salt shortage, went very high. Now we're slightly below that average, but on average, our costs continue to increase. The third one just shows our total expense to purchase that salt per year. And again, you can see that spike 2 years ago where we had to pay over $100 a ton. Now we're paying a blended cost of about $52 per ton. And you can see that cost is also total expenses creeping up.
How's the salt supply now?
The salt supply it's fairly available.
I heard Toledo has a lot up there.
Yeah, we're not having issues getting it, but we only purchase so much to fill our salt barn at capacity. At X dollars, that gives us our best price. That was around $49 a ton. Now to buy additional salt, we're paying $59 a ton.
When do you typically make the big purchase then?
In the fall, well, we get on the salts contract, actually, as soon as winter's over, we'll calculate what we need to replenish, get on the state salt contract. That lets in the summertime. We purchase it in the fall, and it's delivered usually by October.
Oh, okay.
So what'll happen as soon as this winter's over, let's say I need 1,700 tons of salt, I'll get on state contract for around 1,900 tons, give us a little bit of flexibility. And that salt will all come to us before the winter starts next year. So we get out ahead of the winter. Like I said, we just purchased another 1,000 tons 2 weeks ago, and these events are very difficult on our salt supply. I think we'll be all right in our budget that we'll be able to purchase even another 1,000 tons with the money that is budgeted this year. But if we have to purchase that much or even more just to finish this winter, we may have to do an appropriation sometime in March or April in order to buy the full amount from ODOT that we'll need to replenish. So it all depends depends on how the storms come. And again, these 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 2 inch storms are very difficult on our supply. Takes the same amount of effort to run the trucks around, even when you're not plowing, and put the salt down. So that gives you an update of where we are with the salt. Any questions on our winter operations or any comments on the job we're doing?
Yeah, just one comment. A couple weeks ago, we had a lot of snow on the ground after one of our larger events there. I was back in off at Channing and Fair and back in there. And I don't know what it was. I'm glad I was in my 4-wheel drive truck. I mean, there were like ice buildup, like almost a foot. And then, of course, there were places where there wasn't any ice. So it was basically like an elevated potholes.
Mm-hmm.
How does that occur?
Well,
And
yeah, I think I even know what you're talking about. We have a number of places, what we call hyperactive sumps, that just keep pushing water out into the road. And then it starts to dam up, and wheel actions of cars will keep pushing that up into these almost ice mounds. We had a couple of calls from back in that area.
These are on the roadway itself?
They'd be in the roadway.
residential road.
Sometimes you'll see them as almost a glacier out across the road. They can be several inches thick by the curb. And what we will tell residents is don't be afraid to put a lot of salt in the curb right by their sump pump so it doesn't start to freeze up, back up their sump pump line. If it gets bad on the road, we can come out there and put a lot of salt down on there and try to break it up a little bit. But it's when the temperatures are they get to that 10 degrees and the water comes out of the sump, the water freezes in almost a couple minutes. It doesn't run away, doesn't get to the curb. So you start getting these ice dams built across the road. Very common problem. I reached out to my counterparts in Central Ohio, a number of communities, for solutions, and about the only thing people said is put a lot of salt down. If it's an issue driving, tell residents to, if they can tie their sump into a storm outlet, if they happen to have one in the yard, it's a great option. If not, if it gets really, really bad, like hazardous, we can come out and try to chip some of the ice away. It's really hard to get ice that's bonded to pavement off the pavement. you think you just bring a backhoe out and scrape it up. It's not, doesn't work like that at all. But there's been some that we've gone out and salted, like on East William Street's a good example. There's a couple there that really spread out across the lane. They become a real hazard for braking. So we tend to we go out there and put salt down on those. It won't melt it all, but it gives it a little mushy, so it gives a little more surface friction over your tires.
Yeah, I mean, I was just amazed
Yeah.
how deep they were.
This has
And
been
it
a
was
bad year because
big
we had
area.
that spell of really cold air for almost 3 weeks. It stayed in the 20s, teens, even below 10. And that's when you see these ice issues really start to pile up.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you, Bill. Move on to item 6, an update on the refuse initiatives.
Yeah, we wanted to bring one to your attention. This is the Franklin Street parking lot on the North Sandusky block west behind the buildings. And what you're seeing is
Hold on, let me get my bearings. I
Yeah.
can
behind
walk
Thurman's.
into, I can walk into Thurman's from back there, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, no, okay.
Yep, the very south end of the drawing is the north side of William
Okay, I
Street.
get you.
Okay, so we had a number of businesses there that were on a kind of a cooperative private dumpster. That the relationship has broken down pretty badly, and they no longer had access, and their options were, well, put it on the curb, which we don't, we just, we solved that in South Sandusky. So I said, well, let's look at doing another set of publicly accessible dumpsters. That's what you're seeing in the green on the end of that parking stall. The red one is an existing dumpster, public dumpster, that's utilized by 11 businesses. That's right behind the health business. And that's full and utilized. They've asked for that to be pushed somewhere else for a number of years, and we haven't until at this point. We may, right now what we're doing is piloting where you see the 4 green dumpsters. We have 2 dumpsters out there now. That's to provide immediate refuse service for those businesses that no longer have a place for their, Thurman's is one of them, 12 West, and there's one more. And we understand there's going to be a few more businesses that are going to need access. So we're providing that. This is what we successfully did on the block on South Sandusky on the west side, in that parking area, where there was not appropriate space to put private dumpsters. You can't force people to work together. So we have 2 publicly accessible dumpsters on the south block. Now we have 2 right now that we're piloting because we got to make sure we can actually service them with our trucks. The reason I bring this up is because it's a good solution and it does work well. And when we control the collection and dumpsters, we can bring people's rates down. Instead of having 8 dumpsters being serviced with just a little bit of trash, we can service these much more frequently and reduce the rates. Right now we have 2 parking spaces that are bagged to have those dumpsters right there. And why we're only bagging them is because we are piloting, making sure that the businesses that have to use it do like the location, they do feel it's convenient, and we're able to control some illegal dumping. So we're just piloting this right now. What's most important is we did resolve the immediate needs of a couple of our restaurants downtown that had to have, Thurman's was one, and then
Restoration Brewers.
Restoration Brewworks was another one. It was really important to us to make sure we can provide good sanitation, refuse collection for them. So that's where we are with this. It's not permanent yet. We want to pilot it for 3-4 months, make sure everything's working. If we do, then we're going to have to redesign that area and make it more appealing. We want to put the appropriate type of corral, not just your typical board corral around it that looks like it belongs behind an industrial building, but really dress it up. And because one of the ideas back here is to make this more appealing with parking, not less. Certainly having dumpsters there isn't ideal, but you have to have refuse collection for these services. So we'll come up with some ways to try to make that screening, natural screening, probably more vegetative screening to make that work. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of what's happening back there because it is a change. And I know we're hypersensitive to parking right now. And this is ultimately taking 2 parking spaces. If we can take the red dumpster and combine that in that pod also, we'll actually open up an additional parking space on the north side. So our net loss may be one parking space, maybe 2 at the most. That's what we're thinking. So that's the issue that's going on right there. And like I said, we did able to service our businesses, which was good, but that's the outcome of it. Any questions on that initiative? Seeing none, I'll go on to, this is just a copy of the full memos in your packet. Question came from council about, after the big flooding in November, about leaf in the gutter and what can we do. I took some time, again, reaching out to my counterparts about leaf collection, and what we do is probably one notch below about the best service I've found in Central Ohio. There are some that go ahead and still vacuum leaves from the gutter. Most do it as a one-time deal. So the premise was, can we stop this from flooding from occurring again? Not if you just let people push your leaves to the front tree lawn in the gutter and just pick them up once in 6 or 8 weeks. You're going to make it far worse than the condition now. One community, Upper Arlington, which I talk about in there, provides weekly vacuum pickup. All you have to do is rake them to the front. It also takes, and it's detailed in here, it takes 6 vehicles, 3 men per vehicle, 6 weeks, and they do nothing else in the community except that. And that's with 18 men. We have 7 in our streets, 4 in traffic, and 5 in parks. Those 3 divisions would be doing nothing but leaf collection 8 hours a day for 6 weeks, and all of the services would fall apart. So we're not able to add that level of service back because we just don't have the manpower to do it. We reached out to a number of private sources that do landscaping, and although we had a couple that were interested, when they realized the magnitude of picking leaves up weekly, they said, well, there's no way we can do that. So our system, which does provide weekly leaf, unlimited amount of leaf cleanup, all we ask residents to do is to bag them yourself, get them to the curb, and we'll pick them up at the curb, any amount of yard refuse. So I think we still have a really good, solid program. In terms of the issue of don't put them in the gutter, I just think it's high level of public education to the residents about, please don't, you have a responsibility that that leaves that do get in the gutter, you need to clean those up too. And we can try to blanket the community with more information about that. We can target certain property owners who don't clean their leaves, but it does end up in the gutter, and drop notices off and say, look, you have to, we can't make you clean the leaves out of your backyard, but you at least got to get out there and clean them up in the gutter, because it causes problems for Blake and all, for all of us. So that letter just kind of updates where we are. I think our program is very solid. I just don't think financially it's feasible to do any type of vacuuming program.
Even a limited use of like dandy bags or something like that would help, or?
Well, you could put the dandy bags on there, but they're going to catch all the leaves, and then you're going to have the flooding issue. So really, you don't want things in the road. And one of the biggest drawbacks about asking people to rake to their tree lawns is you get a little bit of wind, they all end up in the curb, in the gutter anyways. First rain you have, they're right down blocking the curb inlets again. So that's the benefit of actually encouraging the bagging, because there's much less propensity for any of those leaves to end up then into the curb. What happened back then was just kind of the perfect storm. It was in an area where the big leaves just started to really fall heavy in between collection for that week, and a number of residents in that historic area that didn't bother to pick up leaves that ended up in the gutter. And we had nearly 5 inches of rain. So all that together made a really bad issue at that one spot, and it was leaf related. But most of the flooding we had actually in town was not just because there were leaves on the street. It's because there was 5 inches of rain, and back-to-back storms just inundated our system.
We should definitely be proactive and put something like that in the community newsletter prior to the fall.
I think so. I think in my review, I thought that was, if we had any deficiency at all, it was trying to get the word out to the community that, please mind the gutter also. It does make a difference. So that's the update on that. And again, the full letter is in the packet for you.
That's not an ordinance of any sort, is it? Like these shoveling of the sidewalk from the snow that you're responsible for that? No, I don't think we say you have to pick the leaves up in the gutter. We could, but then Darren would probably caution us, do we want to start handing tickets out, or do we want to try to come up with, like I said, something that encouragement? No, I would never suggest we're giving tickets, but I mean, I think pretty much
everybody knows that you're responsible for the sidewalk
Yeah.
in front of your house. So how do you get that? You're also responsible for the gutter in front of your house too, you know? I don't know how we do that, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same thing.
most of it's all mostly geared towards maintaining your snow and ice removal on sidewalks. It's not really talks about leaf, branches, things growing up. That becomes more of a zoning issue in terms of property maintenance, overgrown grass and bushes and things like that. But I do think that with the amount of staff we do have, it probably would be possible to come up with not only a broad-based fall announcement before the leaves fall, but then some ability to put a targeted notice. And if you got 50 neighbors that clean it up nice and you got 2 that don't, it wouldn't be hard to get notices to those 2 property owners saying, hey, this is your responsibility.
Also, I'm thinking that late summer, first Fridays and stuff, just to have information in front of City Hall about that.
That's good.
As people are wandering around.
It's a good idea. Okay. Any additional questions regarding that? I guess one question I have is, do you want my memo to go to full council since it originated in full council, or are you satisfied dealing with it at your level?
I'm satisfied at this level
Okay.
myself. I don't see it.
Okay. Next quick update is just the bulk item collection. It's been very successful. Again, this is just a snapshot in there, but if you read the bottom line, since this is about 9 months now worth of collection, 379 stops, just under 1,000 items collected. And our cost to dispose of those items has been just over $2,300. We've collected $9,700 in fees. The difference helps offset our labor cost and equipment cost. If we use our true labor cost, and that's just manpower, not equipment, we put about $11,000 worth of time into the effort. But again, these are people whose labor rates are already being collected in our normal user fees. So it's been very successful. No one has any problem with having to come in and fill their forms out, let us know, and pay. We've had no pushback. A couple questions said it'd be nice if we could do this online, and I think that's something that we'd like to move towards ultimately as a city, is be able to collect nearly any fee and give information online. So we'd like to move towards that. But we'll go 3 more months. I'll make a final recommendation to the body, but even at this point, we've had, you can see it's dropped off a little bit in the 2 winter months, but there's still a fairly steady demand, and people have a lot of stuff to throw out. So we've had no issues with anything, nothing illegal, contraband, or anything like that.
So it's the, second and fourth?
It's the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, I think, is what we're doing right now, which is our lighter normal refuse day. So that's the time we can afford to take a person off the refuse truck and put them with the supervisor on the bulk item.
Is it the same for multifamily housing as well?
No, if only for single family housing at this point.
What do you do with the bulk items at the multifamily?
We don't, we give them, we say you can take them, you can hire someone to take them to.
So our trucks won't pick it up?
No, because we don't, one of the problems with multifamily is we're gonna get the businesses themselves, the owners cleaning apartments out after they leave, and leave those big piles of stuff for us. They can manage that now. They have ways to manage that, or they use the dumpsters to manage that. And our concern was, we have a move-in, move-out service for single family, but to extend that to multifamily, we can end up with a dozen or more a week of these big piles of moved out or eviction.
What's move in, move out?
Move in, move out. If you move into a new house and you have 200 boxes, well, you can break them all down. We'll take them all. Or if you're moving out and you say, I just can't take this last garage full of stuff, get it out to the curb, and we'll take it all for you.
There's a fee, obviously.
No, there's not a fee for that.
Oh, really?
We'll just, that's a service to the
Never ever heard that in 22 years living in Delaware.
Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of people say, what do I do with all this stuff? I only got one toter. It's like, well, it's a move in or a move out. We're glad to work with you on that.
Okay.
So it's another provision of, that's one of those local things we're able to provide the community because we have our own service.
Okay.
So we'll bring a final update and recommendation. Along the same lines, we are piloting what I call a fully automated collection vehicle. Right now we're semi-automated in that you've seen how it works. The driver has to get down, stop, pull the toter over. So this machine actually will reach out and pick the toter up and dump it on its own. It's a really quick operation. We're at the point now where we've grown so much in subdivision growth, and we've been doing the partially automated for a long time now. I think it was 2002 we first started. So clearly proven benefit, and across the country people are collecting trash this way everywhere. The next step is, do we go to the automated? And if you can you actually, can I control this? You can click on the link.
And it's in conjunction with our current totes then?
That's correct. It's,
Yeah, sure. We trust you.
I know.
it's a really short, like 30-second video of how the machine works. That's all. Can you expand it on the bottom too?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. It's quick.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
I guess you can't.
You can play it again one time if you didn't catch it the first time.
So is that cycle time, is that about half the cycle time of a manual?
Hit the replay.
I'm trying.
Okay. It depends on where the dumpsters or where the toter's been. Clearly this cycle, grabbing it and getting up is much faster. The machine itself cycles faster than our current machine does. And as soon as the driver learns how to line up when he pulls up, the machine does all the work and then he can pull to the next one. So while we're looking at it, there's definitely, there could be improved efficiency in how many stops we can make.
The only negative I can see in that, and it's definitely a user's end, is you drive around town, how high people pile trash in the trash can.
Yep.
So it's going to knock, we're going to have constant garbage on the curb strip because he's not going to get out and do anything about it.
And that's what we have to, those are all the as we pilot, we have to look at all the conditions. Now, technically, we tell our drivers, if it's twice as high as the toter is, that they can drive, you're supposed to close a lid. If a lid's not closed, our policy is you can drive by. Try not to. The driver will try to get out there, and and then they'll make note of it. And if we see that happening over and over again, we'll send them a letter saying, you need an additional toter. You can't double stack your toter every week. So that's one issue we have. People who put them further away. The actual reach on the arm we're looking at is 9 to 13 feet. So it can get between. If someone parks a car, it can still reach over past that, not over the car, but next to it. So the big benefit is our highest injury rate is our refuse drivers, because they got to stop, turn, step down. So it's knee, ankle, lower leg, and then shoulder issues. Some of those toters are loaded up with over 100 pounds, 150 pounds. And so that's where all of our injuries are. So this would eliminate injuries also. Well, like I said, to go to the next level, we got a pilot. We want to see how the machines operate. We want to look at, is it the right fit? Certainly, like the historic Northwest, we wouldn't be able to use it with the amount of where they are. Some are in alleys, some are between parked cars. So it's not for everywhere, but most of our growth now is in these subdivisions where it would be maybe very beneficial to have that. Would it mean we wouldn't get out of the vehicle if we saw a mess? No, our policy would be, if the machine dropped a bag or something fell out, get down and get it. That's our service. We're not like, again, other waste management services that you see the trash is blowing off. That's not the community we want. So we would put some policy in place to say, if it made a mess, clean the mess up. But that's why we want to take time throughout this year, really pilot it and see, are we ready for that type of equipment? Really make sure that it has the benefit. Cost-wise, it's come down where it's very, very similar to the equipment we're buying now, which is why we're looking at it.
Question.
So, yes.
So, I work in my office, and every week I watch the guys come out there and do the garbage and do the recycles and the leaf bags if they're out there. And right now they get out, of course, they get that toter over and up it goes, and it appears at least that they're watching what's dumping out of that toter. And then, getting the toter back and off they go. So in this case, they'd have no visibility into, so if I put
Like propane.
transformer full of PCBs in my toter, you would have no way knowing that.
Yeah, and even now, it's really hard to catch those because once it's over, most of your view is obstructed from what falls out of it. So there's just an honor system in general to the community that please don't put car batteries in there, don't put propane tanks in there. Most of those items are found at the transfer station because all this is dumped out on the transfer floor. And that's where the operators will get calls that they found contaminants in our trash, usually it's tires, and we can get charged for that. So that's where they tend to pick those things back out of the stream before they get loaded into the semi-trailers and taken off to the landfills. At the local level, very, very hard to pick those things out unless it's sitting on top.
Gotcha.
It's a good point, but it's one that it's a condition that exists today as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll bring back more information on that as we continue to pilot. Next item is just a really quick update. You probably don't get out to 440 that often, but the dark gray is where I should say, building under construction now, where it's being built. The old silo is gone and the footers are going in for the building. A lot of the outside civil work has been completed. So it's 27,000 square feet when it's complete. That's just kind of an isometric view of what the building will look like. The longer part is a garage that will house all the vehicles, all the equipment, all the toters and storage bins will be there, and a small workshop when there's extra time goes out there and the guys go out there and assemble them or repair broken tip carts. The other side is a recycling floor, and that's where all of our recycling will come in, be dumped out on the floor and sorted, and then it'll be shipped out either in roll-off containers for the mixed, which is your metals and glass and plastics, and everything else will go out. I'll be pushed onto enclosed trailers and be taken away by a recycler. It's a very utilitarian building, steel siding, low slope roof, concrete wall. The high concrete wall in the lower view is up against the recycling area, so we can pile recycling fairly high and pick it up with a front end loader. So a very simple building all around, and we're at least our contractor is saying that we should be in the building by this summer, which means then we can go down and decommission Cherry Street completely, clean that mess up, and restore it back to a kind of a natural space. I want to turn over the next couple of issues. I'm sorry, I just jumped ahead, Chris, with you on item 7.
Unless there's any other questions on, then we'll go ahead and move to item 7 on the roadway paving initiatives.
Good. Nathan, one of our engineers, I think we introduced you at council, didn't we, Nathan? Okay. So he's overseeing a couple of these projects. We wanted to provide you some quick updates on these, the first of which is the overheight detection, long-awaited overheight detection for Central Avenue. Nathan, I'll let you.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Override detection is making progress. ODOT has issued POs for all the different parts that go into the project, mast arms and signs and pole bases, and then a contractor to install all that. ODOT's actually doing most of the purchasing of the materials that are needed. We're going to be purchasing the overheight detection sign and then getting reimbursed from ODOT. And then our guys will be doing the installation of the laser that will detect overhead vehicles, and then some of the wiring for the sign in that condition before.
Yeah, we're still talking about the canopy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, there'll be laser beams that will be going at Euclid and at the hospital entrance. That's what they'll be. And then if a vehicle or something was to break that plane of the laser, then the sign will flash these messages warning them that they're going to hit the bridge. So we hope to have it installed and working this summer. It's just looking like, well, there's a lot of lead time on the poles mostly and the sign. So depending on those lead times will be when the project gets built and constructed and in use.
What's the total cost of the city for this? I know we don't know exactly right now, do we?
Yeah, well, it's our time. We were at $210,000 grant for it.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this is I don't know this information. There's this thing going on in a couple of my subdivision web pages my ward that, this is costing the taxpayers a bunch of money to do this.
Yeah.
I want to get the most accurate information of what
Right.
the true cost for us is.
Actually, we're about 190 some thousand, I think, is our total parts cost. What's changed is the delivery method. The original project was much more robust in that it had these warning signs right by the bridge. It also had pre-warning signs back at Troy Road and back at Liberty that would do the similar thing, and it would indicate you're too tall, you must turn here. Again, all laser activated. All that plus the signage we will have, we were getting bids of $500,000, $600,000, nearly 3 times what the funding was available. We had some additional funding from WARP-CM, but that took it up to about $315,000. So the delivery method is what changed. We said, we think we can do this thing a little simpler. The most important thing is to get a truck stopped before it hits the bridge, not so much getting it turned. All the other signage we have should tell a truck to turn before they get there. So we worked, gosh, it's been probably more than a year with ODOT trying to get a delivery method where we can just buy parts and put them up, as opposed to the traditional design, bid, build method. So it took a lot of work with ODOT, district and central office to get them to agree to that. And that's where we are now. So we're buying parts and having them installed, and the city is going to do the programming and the wiring of these things. So the total cost, we're back to that $215,000 safety fund grant is still available, and that is going to look like cover 100% of all the purchased costs in consultant contractor services to put it in.
This whole
So-
thing will be paid for via a reimbursable.
Through,
grant.
yes.
So it's
state
only,
safety.
only our labor.
It's only our labor, correct. Yep.
Have you seen those floating around too?
No, I haven't. But, yeah.
So just a little more
That's surprising.
ammunition, Chris, on that too, is that we've run the numbers about it'd be easier to lower the road. Well, one, it's very difficult working under CSX because of their rules. Even if we could, just to bring the road down about 2 feet by the clearance and then run it up the slopes, we're starting at about a $750,000 project. But that would be 100% our local dollars. So if 215,000 or what turns out to be maybe under $200,000 of grant dollars helps the situation out, it's definitely worth going for that effort first before we do something as drastic as try to reconstruct a road. It's good, like I said, it's going to be minimum $750,000 million, probably at least $1 million project. So I think we're
Lower the road.
to lower the road. Yep. It's not
All our money.
that simple. All our money.
So this is $215,000 that's reimbursed.
Correct.
Thank you. Come and sit down for a while.
I don't know, I'm going. I can just get them, thank you
All
very much.
right.
Do you find that vehicles going one way or the other tend to hit the bridge more often than going east, going west?
I think more been westbound than eastbound personally.
That's my hunch, but.
Yeah, I think so. I can't tell you why. I think because there's just more traffic that comes off of 71 down 42 or 23 that's getting misguided by their
GPS?
GPS.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm just talking out loud. I mean, so after this goes in and all the signs, do any of the other signs that are currently there, those stay in place?
Yeah. There's enhanced signing static package we'll put up also to try to clarify the message. I don't know how that message get any clearer. It's got a
Right.
picture of a truck hitting a bridge. And,
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
after this goes in my opinion, maybe we need to increase the fine. I mean, on this thing, I don't know what more we can do.
exactly.
You know, or, I mean, I don't think with the fine, we raised the fine maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
But in my opinion, it should go up again if this is, I don't know
Right.
what else more we can do to keep you from hitting the bridge.
And there is an atlas available to all people who drive large trucks, especially truckers, that indicate low clearance spots across the country, including West Central Avenue. So most truckers, especially experienced ones, really don't have an excuse. Even if they're lost in the community, their atlas should tell them, this is a road that I can't get down. I should not be on this road. So I remember we had the issue, the guy from Troy Road got down there. It's like, I understand that. We don't have signs on every side street say, don't go this way because there's a low clearance. But a good trucker should have that atlas information already to know there's an obstruction in this community.
When you turn up at Troy, you're still seeing the sign as soon as you make that turn.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, now you see it before you make the turn.
Right.
And that was the only incident I ever know of in my 24 years where someone's come off of Troy Road. And he didn't actually hit it. I mean, he felt he got trapped and he wished he had one more notice. And, but the big picture is the warnings are there, and I think everyone understands that the people who hit it are just the foolish reasons that we're getting from the drivers. Some don't believe it's really that low. Others say, well, my GPS told me to go this way, so I didn't think it was an issue. Both of them just unacceptable reasons. They should be fined, and most of them probably fined, lose their jobs, whatever, by the damage to their trucks and their cargo. So this is like kind of the last technological piece of intervention we could put in there. That's a sign's going to flash red, stop, stop, stop. You know, what more can, if you go past a flashing sign that's telling you to stop, you're over height, and you need to call. Now, when they call 203-1111, they're going to get a response, and the response is going to be, here's your ticket, because you ignored all the other signs. But then they'll also provide the assistance. They got to back those trucks all the way back up the hill, all the way to Euclid and get them turned around. It's tough on traffic, but we're trying to just protect from the accidents, what we're really trying to do.
Yeah.
That's all this project does. I've told you to eliminate the issue. It's going to be another $1 million project of our money.
I love it. I can't wait to respond to some of these. You know.
Yeah,
I just want to verify what we've been saying all along.
Yes.
Before I
good.
shut up my mouth.
The next one, the US 23 emergency pavement overlay. So this project was kind of initiated through all the accidents at Mingo Curve that we've been having. And what we realized, or what
Going
ODOT,
Bingo curve.
Nathan, go north.
going north on 23. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay. Okay, wait.
It's the third curve
Yep.
on 23. So I don't know if there's been quite a few slide off accidents there. And so what was found is ODOT, whenever they resurfaced 23, they put down a mixture that was, it was, I guess, the aggregate on top polished because of the mixture they used. And it was causing people to slide off whenever it was raining or in snow conditions or something like that. So that's kind of what sparked this project. So we applied for, so in order to correct it, ODOT's problem, we applied for safety funds and we got approved. So from those safety funds, we're able to microsurface 23 in two different parts. The first part was the micro milling that we did in the wintertime. I don't know if you guys have realized the slow lanes of 23 going northbound and southbound were micro surface. That was part one. This is all reimbursable through ODOT. And part two is going to happen in the spring, and we're working on plans for that currently. So we're going to micro surface both lanes so we can get high friction and hopefully prevent a lot of the accidents that are happening through these curves. We're hoping that we can award the project in June, and construction will probably start sometime midsummer, depending on scheduling for the contractors. So I don't know if there's any other questions or anything.
Yeah, again, this is costing us time, but
Yeah,
not local funds. We did look at it as ODOT's issue, but we like to work very cooperatively through the district, and it's been a great partnership. Since the diamond milling occurred just before Christmas, I think it was,
Yeah.
we haven't had an accident.
Yeah.
We're having an accident once every 2 weeks or more recent. So it did the job, and the micro overlay will restore, as Nathan said.
Yep.
It's good cooperation between, again, local jurisdictions.
Item 3, 2018 resurfacing. So this year the local streets are going to be resurfacing is Blymer and Cambridge from Lexington to Exeter. Those are the local funded streets we're going to be doing. And the grant funded streets will be Winter Street and Hefner Street. And then we also have a cooperative, US 42 resurfacing with ODOT, which we have a significant, ODOT's paying a significant portion of that as well. The OPWC grant streets, there's a little bit of a delay potentially in getting awarded for that grant. So we're kind of on the bubble right now, so it could be awarded in the fall potentially. So how we coordinate that, we're not sure yet. It just kind of depends on how we're awarded the grant funds. We can't start the resurfacing on those on Winter and Hefner until we get the grant money. So we're kind of waiting to hear back if we get the funds for that for those streets. The local streets, we're currently preparing a plan package and it's going to go out to bid probably next month. So those will be able to be completed early this year. And yeah, I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Yeah, typically on our OPWC, we know at this time of year
Yeah.
that we've been, because we're on that bubble of being awarded, we have to wait until they know the funds are going to be in place. That's going to push our whole schedule back. It is possible, though not highly likely, but it's possible the project could slip Hefner and Winter to 2019, depending upon when we understand we definitely have the funding. So until we know we have the funding, we don't want to go out to bid. Because we can't tell a bidder, you're bidding us, give us your pricing, but we don't really know if we're going to build this or not.
Yeah.
So with respect to the contractors, so if we're in that pinch situation, we may recommend pushing it out to a year just because it may not be time to do it. I just wanted to make one point too on the local. You can see we've got Blymer and Cambridge in there for 18. As you go down the list, next year, Avon-Marl, year after that, 4 streets, year after that, 3 streets, then 1 street and 1 street. And I'm just referring back to, I think it was an August memorandum I wrote you about what we should be doing and what we have money to. And right currently we have 128 miles of streets in our neighborhood. If we could get those streets to last 20 years, I need to do 6.5 miles a year. If I can get them to last 25 years, I need to at least pave 5 miles a street per year. That's $1.5 to $1.9 million per year if I can make streets last that long in the neighborhood. And we're at $150,000 a year. So I just want to make sure we have 400 local streets. We're going to pave 5 streets we're going to pave 12 streets in the next 5 years out of 400 local streets. It just underscores, and I just want to make sure I take opportunity just to keep it fresh. It just underscores how deficient we are in taking care of. We just don't have the funds to really do this. And a lot of people think, well, some of our streets look pretty good. Well, we know the new ones do, but so many of them don't. And if we have any expectation of paving our local streets at least once in the next 25 years, we have got to consider that. And I think that's something we're probably going to discuss more Saturday. So I want to underscore that point. It's one of my probably the most important thing to me is keep that fresh. And then I would be remiss too to say we know you have the William Street project going forward, and the Point project is finally in design, but we want the community to understand we know East Central Avenue is in horrendous condition. And from my perspective, that is our next and single most important large-scale project the city has to deal with is East Central Avenue. It just has to be managed. We can't let it go for 5 years or 10 years and think it will be okay. So when it comes to progress, we probably need to have a lot more discussion in a separate session about roads and what to do about them. But from my perspective, there's a couple underscores and exclamation points to make sure that this committee, who oversees our roads, has that information.
And is the annual funding amount there been decreased from previous plans, and that we're trying to claw back that $350,000 a year for the Point project, right?
Right.
At this point.
Yep.
How much of that $350,000 that we're clawing back for the Point project is impacting the numbers there on a yearly basis?
It's just simple math. I mean, if I had 350,000 plus 150, I could do $500,000 of local servicing a year.
Okay, so I mean, but I guess just as my point of clarification, that entire $350,000 on an annual basis is coming out of that bucket of money right there.
Right. It would if we actually have that $350,000 the point is largely a project. We got a hole right now. We're probably gonna end up borrowing money to fill that hole if we can't fill that hole in the next 5 years with state dollars, federal dollars. So to say we have all that money available is up to council at capital project time of how you want to allocate chunks of money. What we had to do is make sure if whatever money we do have, we had to allocate the 350 towards the point project because we accepted that. It's possible to augment that 150 to a higher amount, but that means other challenges we have that we're spending money on the capital program can't be met.
Right.
So it's an ongoing debate, and it's a good question to ask the dean and Tom regarding our financial, where our status for our finances are, and can we put more money towards it? But this is less than a minimal program. It doesn't even include maintenance type activities. It just gets us a street or two, and it's not even close to where we need to be. We should be doing 20 streets a year, not 2 streets a year. So it just, I guess it underscores what we all know is the issue. We all know the situation. And I can continue to provide any number of formats to underscore this, but I think it's just, when you see things like that, a 5-year program that includes 12 out of 400 streets, you know that there's streets that will never get resurfaced. There should be no expectation in a new neighborhood or new neighborhoods of getting streets built that they'll ever see that street resurfaced in its life, because the money is just not there for it. And that's just the reality of where we are right now. But like, again, I certainly hope we continue this discussion.
Sure, it's going to come up Saturday.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for item 7? Let's see, then we'll move on with item 8, update on the utility projects.
All right, that is me. If you don't mind, if I could start with item D.
What do you think's best?
I just wanted to make note that one of our things we're trying to do is, as a utility, is stay out in front of public works as they're resurfacing roads. We've got a lot of galvanized water lines out there that are hitting the end of their useful life, and before they fail, we try to get out there and get them replaced. And we don't necessarily want to dig up streets that have either just been resurfaced or aren't in the plans to be resurfaced for a long time. What we'd like to do is work with our public works department and get those done as they're resurfacing, so we have that nice road surface that we're not ruining right away. So I just wanted to make a note of that. Any questions on that? No. Okay. So jumping back to item A, the AMI meter reporting network. You guys have been well entrenched in this for years to come, but it is in its death throes. I don't know if that's a great thing or not, but there's very little left to do on our end. We have a total of 40 residential meters left to be converted over, 25 or so commercial meters. A lot of the residential meters that are left to be done are maybe ones that are where the meters are still inside of an apartment or inside of a basement of a house. And so it's just taking a lot of scheduling efforts to work with the tenants, the owners, to get in there and get those changed over. But we are making progress every single week, every single day. Little by little, we're plugging away at that, and it's probably a little less than 40 right now. Also working with our schools, et cetera. We do have a number of in-service days coming up, and we're working with the local elementaries, say, to get in there when the students aren't there and get those switched over. Still during our working hours, but maybe not so much theirs.
How many opt-outs did we have on the AMI?
I'm not sure. I can get that back for you.
That's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Last I heard it was 0.
That's what I thought you were 1 or something like
Brad
that.
said at one point, yeah.
We're having fantastic results from it, though. Any given day, out of the 12,000 or so meters, 15,000 meters, we'll have maybe 7 that don't report back. And generally speaking, if we give that a day or so, it'll come back into the network. It really is performing better than anybody, I think, thought it would work. We're getting those hourly polls. We're no longer estimating somebody's usage for the next 2 months after we get a reading. Instead of every household reading once every 2 months.
Do we have an example of where, on the staff end, a red light went off and we contacted the resident and said, hey, something's goofy's going on at your house?
Yeah, we do, absolutely. But 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a gentleman. He had left. He was to be out of town for business for I believe it was about a month period. he was going to have a cleaning lady who was going to come once a week, but we got a notification that, oh, your house just used 18,000 gallons of water. Within
18,000
Yes.
gallons.
So if you've ever had somebody say, I don't believe a toilet can use that much water, tell them they're wrong.
Is that what it was?
The toilet flap, the flapper and the tank was just stuck all the way open. And so we were able to get a hold of him. He's got a hold of his cleaning lady. They let us in, searching all over, and that's what we found. His toilet was open. We saved him an entire, at least a week's worth of that water continuing to run until his cleaning lady came back in, or until the month until he came back from his business trip. So it's already proving its use to the residents as something that is a way for us to.
That's impressive.
That was in one day, 18,000 gallons.
Now, did she get billed for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is still water used,
But
but
what does that bill come to? Out of curiosity?
I don't know that.
Ouch. Yeah, but
Less
one
than if it
day,
had run for a
times
week.
that by 30 more days.
Yeah. Wow.
There are tangible benefits being put out
Glad
there.
to hear that.
Any other comments on the AMI rollout? No? Next item, I have the sanitary sewer master plan. That has been in conjunction with HDR Engineering. They have been working on that with the department for the past 6 or 7 months or so. What we have right now is we have their finalized draft. Basically, their 100% is to us. We are reviewing that to get comments back to them. So far, we've had very little to say back to them on this one so far. I think we're pretty much there. So as soon as that is finalized, that will be rolled out for all to read and to review. I just want to let you guys know where that was at.
Okay.
I believe Kyle with HDR is bringing me the hard copies tomorrow or Thursday. We had a few comments on the last one. I'm talking very minor things, and so a new printout of all those are coming as well with digital copies, easier to read maybe for some. And that would be all I had on that one. And then lastly, we are currently just begun the tertiary treatment upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant. The contractor showed up Tuesday last week, was their first day on site. So we really just began construction, and so far they've put in an access road for themselves. They've started some low level demolitions of existing things where, making access into the building for themselves within the machinery to start pulling stuff out. This is
What is tertiary?
tertiary. That's the last step. It basically where the sand filters used to
Okay,
be.
gotcha.
But now we're replacing those with disc filters.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're upgrading our treatment process there from the sand filters. We're able to handle 5 million gallons. So that would have been the capacity. With 3 of these disc filter setups going in, we're increasing that to 15, and we have room to add another disc filter setup. So we could potentially, with that additional expansion, have 20 million gallons a day. We're set for quite a while. As far as our plant's capacity, we're good for another 15, 20 years at the minimum of what we can treat. This is the contract with Adena Corporation or Construction is right there. It's the 1.868.990 million. All is going well so far. I'll report back with how that goes and the progress they make and any snafus otherwise.
Awesome.
That is all I have.
Any other questions for?
Yeah, I do. A couple months ago, Brad and Dean had brought to us some comments about the elevated electric cost out at the water treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some discussion at that point in time about maybe using the on-site diesel generators and a backup capacity at night, and if that would be more economical and reduce those costs. What's the status on that at this point?
Well, as far as I know, it's the exact same status as it was last time. We are pulling about 250% more power than we were before the construction happened. we do need to find ways to mitigate that. I've heard that mentioned to me, the diesel generator very lightly. But I'm not sure which direction that's going to go yet. That's going to take a little bit more research on my end to really figure out how we can do something there. There's no two ways around it, though. That we've gone from a gravity-fed water system to a purely pump-driven treatment system, and now I think I need to figure out how we come to terms with the changes that brought to us.
Yeah, whatever we can do to help mitigate those additional costs.
Right, and if it's cycling and learning when to use something like a diesel generator during peak operating our peak expense hours of electricity, because we always know what the diesel is going to cost. The electricity rates are what fluctuate, and we need to absolutely dig into that and see what we can do. And if there is a break-even point when we know that the diesel is cheaper than the electricity, maybe it is the right route to go.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? Okay, finishing up here, sir, I'm getting ready to close the meeting. Is there anything you wanted, you sure? Okay. With that being said, number 9, staff comments, anything?
Yeah, I just had one quick exhibit. I forgot when we talked about snow and ice. That's one of the things I wanted to show. This is going to be accessible now through our website.
I was going to ask that.
You just got in the mail your fold out, and it had a picture, a static picture. This is actually interactive. It's on our website, and you can zoom in. You can put your address to find out what your snow route is. Red routes are priority 1s, green routes priority 2s, and everything else is priority 3. You can zoom in and see it's interactive, so you can see exactly where you stand next to, relative to how soon will my road be cleared. So it's a
So
first.
I'll tell you is what priority road.
It tells you the priority.
You can't see.
You can see where it's applied.
Not yet, but it's the basis for potentially
Yeah, I love that.
adding that
I was
into.
going to ask that question.
Yeah, it's a basis for that. So we needed to get that up first and operable to make sure that,
That's awesome.
and we just want to build from that. And we're going to start using this GIS layering. And one of the next things we want to put up there is our goal in the first 4 months this year is to get our pavement ratings up there, our color-coded ratings. So you live on a green street, yellow street, orange street, or a red street. That's.
I think that's fantastic.
Good. So people can get in there and see these things. It's really, the technology's there. So this is a starting point, but I want to make sure you knew we're going that direction.
Cool. Great. Any other staff comments about anything? No? Elaine? No? You good? All right. Member comments, Mr. Browning?
No comments.
Challenger?
Just one, Bill, and I bent Tom's ear on this early today. Sidewalks. From a standpoint of, been doing a whole lot of walking, and throughout all different parts of town. And currently, we don't have any ordinance that governs sidewalk intrusions except for trees, at least as I've read it. You know, we have the 8-foot minimum vertical clearance for trees, and it tells, you know, if it's a private tree, you're supposed to keep your limbs, you know, trimmed back so they don't impede in that canopy underneath the sidewalks. But a lot of people plant bushes right on the sidewalk, and they immediately grow into the sidewalk, you know. Down on Euclid, and I think, Westgate, is a great example on both sides of that intersection. You know, 2.5 of the 4 foot of the sidewalk you can't even use. And I know, and I've gone round and round and had code enforcement go out sometimes to people, and you know, they'll go out and tell them they have to trim back their bushes or whatever, their tree or whatever it is. But typically they never trim it back enough. You still can't use the full width of the sidewalk, whatever that width is. And I don't know, you know, and then another, for instance, is down on West Central, on the north side of West Central, east of Grady. there's a house there that has a small retaining wall, maybe a 3 or 4 course retaining wall. And like all retaining walls that aren't properly anchored, it's pushed out and now it's over, it's 8 or 10 or 12 inches into the sidewalk
In front of
again.
the doctor's office there.
Yeah, I think it might
They
be
just
where,
painted that house.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what we need to do, but we need to do something. And, I mean, my estimation is if it's a public sidewalk, we should be able to take a plumb line and put it right down there, and it's like, it's on the edge of the sidewalk. Anything that impedes that needs to go. Not trying to become a sidewalk Nazi, but at the same point in time, what good is a sidewalk if you can't use it? Cities or the homeowners put in the money to put these sidewalks in, but you can't use 40 or 60% of them because they have some overgrown arborvitae tree or something in the way. But I don't know what we can do there.
I think, let me look into it, but our sidewalk maintenance section, which was the basis for our Safe Walks program, was really taken out of Ohio Revised Code that talks about sidewalk, curb, and gutter maintenance. So I may look at that and talk, and we could expand simply by putting more of the maintenance requirements in there, the snow, ice, and even the leaves we talked about earlier in the gutter or on sidewalk, the responsibility, and keeping it clear of anything that impedes pedestrian use or cyclist use. Let me look at that and bring something back. I think it may be maybe an easy solution to at least give it some teeth so we can, if we want to tell somebody, you got to fix this wall, or you put a new mailbox up, but it's hanging over the sidewalk, you can't do that. Let me look at that and see if there's an easy way to at least get the languaging right. Then we can decide upon what level of strength of enforceability we want to put in there.
Okay, then just one more sidewalk observation. As you walk around different parts of town, you'll see sidewalks that they've gone from side to side. They're slanted, but it's not like it's just like a tree root that's put up one, but it's like a whole 8 or 10 sections of sidewalk, and they've all canted forward. They're very difficult to walk on, and I can't imagine they were ever put in that way.
Right. Probably weren't.
But
The brick sidewalks here downtown?
no,
Just
these are out, yeah, these are out in residential areas.
Yeah.
And but yeah, they're very much, they've just like, I don't know, collapsed in, maybe there's a storm sewer or something there, and they've kind of, just the whole thing's just kind of sunk into one side.
That's pretty typically the case if it's several sections in a row, it's a utility in the front yard. Most of those we should have caught in the 10-year rounds of Safe Walks, but every more things crop up. The best way we're dealing with these things is we get specific addresses. We're driven right now by demand. Someone calls us and says, I need this done, or would you look at this? We're not going out and routinely looking at 500 homes a year anymore.
Right.
So if we have specific addresses or locations you want to give me offline later on.
Yeah,
we can
as
look at
I'm
that.
out, walking, I'll make some notes, but it's just not 1 or 2 areas. It's a large number of properties, and it just seems so odd. And I know, because it's not a tripping hazard, which is what Safe Walks has really been all focused on, right? It's just, it's really a leaning hazard. It's like you're drunk walking down the road. It's like some of them are very difficult to walk on because they're elevated. So,
well, feel free to, if you find addresses, to get them to myself or get them to Nathan even, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
I have just two quick ones. One, the last time I was on this committee, we had a conversation about with the popularity of our outdoor eating patios and sidewalks and planters. We discussed at one time turning the benches a different ways to white. Is there been any more talk about that at a staff level at all?
Yes, actually, working with Ted Miller on bench locations, petition, maybe some more. So the whole idea of getting away from, we can only put 6-foot long benches this way in pairs,
Yeah,
the impeded sidewalk. We're trying to get past that by saying we can buy smaller benches and we can make areas more walkable. I would like, again, if there's certain areas, definitely like to get those comments from you.
okay.
But I think it is fair game to say the sidewalk is very crowded because it's so heavily used now, which is a really
Right.
good thing.
And I know you can't get a wheelchair around certain areas.
Right.
between the People eating outside and the bench sticking out and the pot right there
Right.
and, you know.
Yes.
So it is-
trash can and-
It's ongoing. We just have 1 or 2 more applications just came in for some more things in the sidewalk area. And so, yeah, we do talk about that often and we like to get the feedback
Okay,
specifically.
good. Doesn't burn. The last thing, I'm the last person to want to add more meetings, but since I've been on this one in a while, this committee meets how, is it, it's
Quarterly.
quarterly? Is there a need ever to, I mean, I'm asking you, Bill, is that enough for what we got coming up, or is that?
I think it is.
Okay.
If we get real heavy, say, into the transportation issue and roads again, we may want to have some special meetings.
Special
in
meetings,
there.
okay.
But I think quarterly, I don't want to speak for Blake either, but typically our type of projects go on for several months or longer. So quarterly updates is pretty good.
Okay.
I would ask if you want us to put together quarterly reports as well in advance or on projects that we've put reports together. Sometimes we haven't put reports together. I'll tell you, it's intensive labor trying to get all that information out really frequently. Or if our presentation of just reporting to you every 3 months on the status of certain things is acceptable to you.
I think that's great, unless there's something,
Yep.
pressing that comes up that maybe we need some advanced information on. That'd be
Okay.
fine, but I just want to make sure.
Excuse me, and we also pushed back when the meetings were normally held from, because we were normally meeting on a schedule of January, and then we were missing that meeting because of the New Year's.
Yeah.
And then 4th of July, it always fell around then,
Okay.
so we pushed it back, so we're missing all of those.
What about this 6 PM start time? Is that,
That's my mistake.
From
I mean, I'm down with it if everybody else is. I
From
mean,
staff point, it's
I'm fine
great.
with it.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah.
I don't know, Georgia, it has to go through some of the council to change the meeting, or we have the
I don't think so.
ability
because-
just to change the time.
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's in the charter that it has to be
Yeah.
at 7, it's just
Just-
making
Yeah,
sure.
the only thing that has to be at 7 is council meetings.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, well then,
yeah,
we'll just look forward to it at 6 o'clock in the future from there. And then just thanks to Mrs. McCoskey for running the meeting there at the beginning.
Mhm.
Thanks to Blake and Nathan, appreciate. And with that being said, motion to adjourn.
so moved.
All right, it is 7:12.
Nice.
All right, great.
Sweet.
Thank you, everybody.